Okay, we are live. It's Friday, and we're going to be taking a look at the current events. It seems everything on the internet this morning has to do with Canada winning a hockey game. Hey, it's a good old hockey game. Got some stomping Tom for you. Eh? Yeah. Well, I guess that's what's going on. Apparently, Canadians can win a hockey game. We're pretty good at that. We've been better in the past, but what do you know? The spirit of the Great White North, you know, appeared and took on the victory in overtime. No, I didn't watch the game. I've not been watching hockey since 2011, maybe 2010. Of course, I grew up watching hockey. We all do over here. It's a thing. It's part of the livelihood of our of our kind and culture. You know, hockey's a big deal to us, right? Uh, and it's for no other reason than my life has taken a different direction, and it filled up with all sorts of other productive things to do, which did not have a window of opportunity to keep me involved with or entertained by or concerned about a hockey game. And I have my own personal opinions on where, of course, the NHL and its direction has gone. I mean, they've alienated us year after year with their lunacy in policies and things like that. And I don't know, there's things, pushed me away, I suppose, also in combination to I just don't have time to watch the game. And I've just not, it's just not a thing for me anymore. But I mean, for many Canadians, it still is, and for many individuals around the world, it still is, no doubt. It's a big part of our culture. It has been for many, many years, and we embrace that, and we were proud about that. We're good at hockey. We love playing hockey. I mean, we live in the seasons of ice and snow, so it kind of seemed like the right kind of sport for us. The right kind of fit in our communities over here. We have ice rinks. We have neighbors who create ice rinks, and kids love to play hockey, love to play on the ice. It's a thing. It's diminished in its quality, in my opinion, because again of the infiltrated lunacy that has come from dangerous and lawless policies. And sadly, we've lost the true gem of spirit for Canadian identity. We've lost our identity. That is why our current pharaoh, young pharaoh, has publicly said, we're getting rid of the Canadian identity. We're just kind of a melting pot location. There is no true border. There is no true recognition to our kind. We're just nothing. And so he did that in a matter of a decade. We've become nothing. But now somehow a small spark has appeared on the ice. We won a game. Well, we lost one just a few days ago too, but it's this thing going on. There is a true, of course, there is an element of reality to it from genuine Canadians who still appreciate the sport. I mean, I appreciate the sport. I've never stopped appreciating the sport itself, in of itself. What I've grown disgusted with is the ideology now that runs the sport, the policies they have, which is again lawless and hostile towards people. It's very divisive, unrighteously divisive, and it creates a lot of problems. So that's kind of what turned me off from it all. But if we keep it in good sportsmanship, it's fun, it's entertaining, and there's still an art that is valuable to the people regarding the kind of sport we took up and upheld as our anthem. But yeah, it's in all good fun. I'm happy Canada won, no doubt. Good for that. Okay, but that's a game. It's sports. Of course, it can mean something a bit deeper. It can reignite a passion of sorts, and all of a sudden now, the individuals who told us that the Canadian flag was a symbol of hate and racism and the all you know, all the slogans, all the descriptors, if you will, all of it, and that it should be burned. It was burned. We would burn the flag in Canada, and we would chant death to Canada, and that was upheld, and that was promoted, and that was so virtuous, and we were so thankful for that. You know, yeah, let's burn the Canadian flag. There is no longer any identity. This country no longer belongs to those of us who have been in the ancestry of this culture. No, it don't belong to us anymore. It belongs to whoever, wherever. Burn the flag. It's racist. It's phobic. It's this, that, and the other. Yeah, just a few months ago. This has been taking place for like a decade over here. Right? Let's get rid of Canadian identity we have. However, it's amazing to me. Something magical happened. An individual over in America got elected with an overwhelming majority. And so the administration over there is doing exactly what those people voted for. And somehow that magically made its way over here. And now the people who are telling us that the Canadian flag is a symbol of hate, a symbol of racism, a symbol of the patriarchy, and all kinds of, you know, on and on. Again, it keeps going. Now, well, we should be proud of the Canadian flag. When our Pharaoh was on a news channel, quote unquote news, if you want to call it that, platform, he was asked, you know, does Canada have an identity? What's Canada? And his response was, well, Canada is not America. Apparently, that's the description of Canadian identity now. What does it mean to be a Canadian? It means we're not American. What a fool. What a fool he is. It's sad. A sly, cunning little fox he is. But he is God's anointed. He is doing exactly what God permits him to do, and that is give the people lawlessness. People wanted lawlessness. People received lawlessness. And that has been taking place. And no Canadian hockey game trophy or win is going to change that. It's not about hockey, right? It's about something a bit more serious than that. Something a bit more serious than that. And that's what's been taking place. So all of a sudden, the individuals who've been telling us that Canada has no identity, that it is a racist, hateful, phobic country, now it's kind of like, yeah, yay, Canada, let's bring out the Canadian flags. You know, people have been fined over here, like given a little, police officers have come to your door and have given you a fine and have told you you're not allowed to wave the Canadian flag in certain cities. In certain locations in this country, that's happened. It's offensive because that flag is so racist. Now, though, I mean, we're all waving it. Wow, that's just, it's magic happened since the big bad orange man over there in America got voted into power. Of course, I'm using a kind of the language that we see out there in the ocean of political, socio-political platforms, but that it's the reality of it all. PTSD is like, I'm being serious now. Serious. PTSD is a real thing. It's a disorder of the mind that came as a result of mass propaganda, mass psychosis, right? Yeah, that stuff. It really is. I mean, I speak with people in the community, and I make friends with people in the community, or I am friendly with people in the community, and I ask about, you know, this, that, and the other, and of their own accord. I'm truly not even the individual at most times. In our current time, I'm usually not even the one who starts the conversation regarding policies or politics or moral codes or things like that. I typically just, because now in our current environment, in our current climate, if you will, people talk about it. Why? Because it's affecting them all around. They're affected by it all around them. So they'll talk about it to everyone that can listen because they're desperate. They're in pain. You know, they some of them have gone through a lot of stuff. Millions and millions of Canadians have gone through some really deep stuff. Well, those who are awake to what's taking place. But the problem is they've been told to hate someone and something that isn't to blame. Like, they've been told to find someone guilty that's not the guilty party here and everything taking place. So they, for instance, like, okay, I'll go somewheres and I'll have a conversation, and the person will bring it up. Like, man, I'm so tired of what's going on around. I live in this community. It's filled with crime. You have prostitution, hardcore narcotics, drug overdoses, drug dealing. You have all sorts of foreign illegal threats that are defecating everywheres and just on and on. This can go for an hour solid, that they will explain to me how desperate they are. They're scared to come out of their own house in the cities. And in rural areas, we're seeing break-ins and burglaries just every other month now, it seems. Week, almost. Crime, right? Crime and crime and crime. Murders and stabbings and thefts and thefts and thefts. And they'll explain to us it's not right. It's causing a lot of problems and anxiety and depression and fear. We're scared, they tell me. And there seems to be no end to it. And it's the economy. They can't afford to buy the groceries. They can't afford to pay the rent, the mortgage. They can't feed themselves. They can't put gas in the car. They're in line at the food bags. Their children are dying of drug overdoses. The country's gone. It's done. It's cooked. And no, hooray, we won a hockey game last night's going to change that fact. The reality is people are struggling, and they're hurt, and they're in pain. And I listen to them, and I agree with them. I know, I see it. But here's where you see the propaganda. And let's just call all of it TV. We'll just brand everything deceptive and lying and cunning, unrighteously cunning, and all of. Let's just lump it all up in TV, right? TV said, "You're suffering, aren't you, as individuals, as he, she, they, thems, right? You're suffering as he, she, they, thems. And you know why you're suffering? You know why all of this crime is taking place, all of this slaughter and murder and all the chaos and the disorder and the riot and the unrighteous protest and the violence and the burnings and the this. And you know why everything's happening? It's the big bad man over there in America that just got elected. Yeah, it's Trump's fault." I assure you, that's the psychosis in the community. We're on the same ground here, and we're like, I can't afford to eat. I'm like, dude, talk it, man. I know it. Can't afford to eat. Yep. Can't afford to pay the rent. Can't afford to pay. Can't do anything. I lost my business. I lost my employment. I didn't have the right papers to travel. I couldn't say goodbye to my grandma as she passed away. I couldn't go congratulate my niece who was getting married. I can't. We lost everything, and now they no longer even hire us. They don't even want to employ us. We don't have the right skin pigmentation. We don't have the right belief system. We've lost it all. I mean, we're in line. Me and my family are in line to go get some food if there's food left, and it's all Trump's fault. It's all Trump's fault. We had a plane crash here in Toronto, right? Remember the whole that was like viral. Still is to a certain degree, I suppose. The whole plane crash over there in Pearson. It was like upside down, strange thing. Yeah, it's Trump's fault. TV told us. TV told us it's Trump's fault. Has to be. I mean, look at him. He's a massive racist, isn't he? He's a Nazi. He's Hitler. TV told us. And that's the general idea you get in public life at its surface crust, if you will. That's when you speak to people, they're aware of everything going on. To a certain degree, they are aware of everything going on in the community. I'm just tired of waking up, opening my door, and there's human feces everywhere from these criminals, and there's needles, and the whole community smells, just like a some kind of a third world sewer of sorts. And I say that, man, I've been watching some documentaries of certain locations and around the world that it's just, my heart breaks for the people. I mean, literally, I've seen one not too long ago that truly, it gave me a core memory, And it's not because I'm not aware of poverty. I assure you, there is poverty in this country. I've seen poverty. I cannot say myself being the recipient or having lived in poverty to that measurement. I know what it is to go hungry. Don't get me wrong. I know what it is to be diminished in the quality of lifestyle. I know what it is to be found in locations, in households, if you can even call it households, that people are living in poverty in our own country. I've seen that, but not to the extent, if you will. And I knew of its existence, but it's to see it so clearly from an individual I've been following, a documentary individual who has a channel there on YouTube. And he goes to these locations. He'll go to where is it now? In certain locations in India, certain locations in Africa, certain locations in the Philippines, certain locations, in all these locations here. And the point is to just have a very transparent, no agenda at all, just to show you here's how some people are living. So though we might want to complain as Westerners, we shouldn't, because we're still blessed beyond belief compared to these locations. And man, I mean, I cannot express to you. I'd have to share a link with you for you to see it. But it's a bit much for some. I think some of us may not have the conscience to see something like that. It's too devastating. They literally live with their feces, and they literally bathe in their feces, and they eat it, and they swim in it, and they live in it. And I mean, I'm not exaggerating anything here. I'm not trying to make it more dramatic than it already is. It's I mean, the life expectancy, I think, is at 32 years old or something. If you're 40, you're an elder somewhere. It's sad. It breaks my heart. I was watching it with my wife, and we're just like, good grief, man. There's no need for that. You know why that is as it is? No, it's not the fault of the economy. No, it's not the fault of this, that, and the other. I mean, obviously, they are symptoms of the greater problem. And what is the greater problem? The source issue here is truly, well, I'll just say it. It's a lack of Jesus. Having Jesus in our brains, in our hearts. Having the Bible guide our decisions. The result of many of these things, in a great part, is due to foolish decisions that lead to receiving the prize. Here's your prize. The consequence that comes from it. Now, there is an element, of course, of just this fallen world, because you can find faithful Christians living in some pretty desperate situations. And it's not necessarily their fault, if you will. There may still be, in all facets, there might even still be, how should we say, accountability to Christians who live in such situations, to say, you know what, I can't. My children are perishing here. We're living in feces. Maybe if we just take if you take the principle of the scriptures, maybe you tell yourself, maybe it's time we move. Maybe it's time we go somewheres. Maybe the opportunity is not there, though. So again, these things are true and real, but for the most part, people are found in despair, and people are found in poverty, and people are found in famine, and people are found in all kinds of crime-ridden infestations and whatnot, because they don't make the right decisions. And because we don't make the right decisions, because we are governed by foolish decisions, we elect foolish leaders who do foolish things, and bang, that's it. That's what happens. And we find ourselves in the mess we're in. And some of them, that's more, we can look at the model of where this goes. Where we are currently in this fallen nation, and the direction we're so quickly going. All we need to do is, again, look at these documentaries and be like, that's where we're going, that's where that ends up. That's where this goes. And it keeps going that way because we have blind spots, we have weaknesses, we have vulnerabilities that are caused by our lack of knowledge. My people are destroyed, right? Isaiah, wasn't it the prophet who spoke those things? Wasn't it him? What do you guys think? I think so, right? When he said, my people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. Something along those lines, right? Well, they're not, they can't discern it. So that's why when I speak to people in the community, they're sick and tired of it, of what's going on. Everything. They're sick and tired of it. They see it. They're in despair from it. Most are victims of it. But then they turn around and say it's all America's fault. It's all the Americans' fault. Why? Well, because Trump. They've been manipulated by TV to think it's all Trump's fault. He's the go-to fault. It's Trump's fault. And we're told that by our leaders, our government, our corporations, our academic institutions, our entertainment industry, our media platforms, cable and news, everything. It was a mass infiltration and takeover by foreign agencies. And it worked because, well, the Canadian people were not keeping up with reality. We were busy drinking beer and watching hockey games. Right? We won last night. Yay. Got millions of Canadians weeping today because their child overdosed on fentanyl. That is legal in this country now. You can go and get anything, really. You can smoke crack on the side of the road. You can inject the venom, ride the dragon, heroin. You can do whatever you want, really. Crime is, they burglarize. And police officers protect, secure the criminals. And they bring the law-abiding citizens who try to defend themselves from the criminals while they bring them to jail. Again, they burned the Canadian flag. They hated it. They told us it was a racist symbol of the patriarchy, and it was phobic, and it was death to Canada was being chanted. They burned the Canadian flag in our public streets, and they said death to Canada, and our government, and our corporations, and our academic institutions, and our entertainment industry, and our media platforms. They all cheered, and they all promoted it, and they all encouraged it. And then all of a sudden, Donald Trump won over there in America. Now, these same individuals, these same experts, who told us there's more than two sexes, these experts that have us drinking from paper straws instead of plastic, we're saving trees and turtles, these same experts who fly around in private jets while we are online in the food bank, these same experts, they're telling us it's all Trump's fault. The plane that crashed at Pearson, upside down, that's Trump's fault, don't you know? Yeah. Our complete collapse, our Atlantic oceans filled with foreign threat. You have Russia and China just ready to pounce on us. All Trump has to say is, yeah, you can go ahead, and they don't want to play ball with us anymore, so we're just going to cut the line here from them. And he did. He said it in so many words. He said, we're not going to protect them. Why should we protect them with our military? Now, if they were the 51st state, sure. But apparently Canadians want to keep, being robbed blind and taxation theft, and again, how bad must it get? Well, it seems so bad that it's an inevitable implosion. It's just going to happen, but it's all Trump's fault, you see. The lunacy of our current season is so bad that literally I think many Canadians would have their head in the guillotine moments from execution, just a few minutes from execution, and the last words, the executioner will be like, do you have any last words? It's all Trump's fault. There goes the head in the bucket. It was all Trump's fault. I assure you, these people are even going to meet Jesus, appear before Jesus, and be like, it's all Trump's fault. You can't send me to punishment. You can't. No, it's all Trump's fault. It's sad. It really is. That we've made it here, but it's our fault, though. It's our fault. Accountability. Now, not all Canadians. I assure you, there are millions of Canadians that are well aware of what's going on. They are awake. There are others out there like me who know what's going on because we've been paying attention to current events. When I chose to follow Jesus back in 2011, that was a life turner for me. I mean, in my past life, politically, I was not really involved. I didn't care much about politics because we were of the one percenters. We were outside. We were lawless. We were the outlaws. We were organized criminals, and we didn't abide by the law. I mean, we paid them off, and I assure you the Liberal Party was really easy to pay off because they love, cocaine and prostitutes. And you kick them a few bucks, they look the other way. They're judges, they're police officers, they're FBIs, what we call FBIs over here. All of them corrupted. That's the only thing we knew about politics, really. Voting? No, I'm not going to vote. We were liberal in policy, though, as criminals, no doubt. Sure, whatever the LGBTQ wants, the abortion industry, whatever, man. We didn't care about those things. Who cares? We need to keep the money mill going, and we need to keep our lifestyle preserved in this criminal empire, in this criminal world. And to do that, we need to pay off these liberals, right? Well, that's the only thing I kind of knew about politics. And then in 2011, when a series of events throughout the years had taken place that pointed us towards, this governing providence, this wind that brought us to a decision, my wife and I were just like, I think it's time to just sell the farm and change our life. Let's follow this man named Jesus. Seems like a better plan. Well, we did. We began to follow Jesus, and I began to read the Bible, and I began to tap into some sound material, and slowly the seed of education was growing in my mind, in my heart, in our minds, in our hearts, and you just have these moments. You're like, hey, wait a minute. Our political platform in this country is corrupted. You mean to telling we're legally perverting children at the hands of pedophiles? And if you were to openly speak that, you're the bad guy being put in jail? What? What's going on? It's like if, I had blinders on, right? I had a veil over my eyes, and it got taken away by the reality of the gospel. No third-party agency, just me, my own mind, and reading the Bible. I was coming to knowledge and being able to discern stuff. I'm like, hey, man, they're legally slaughtering our most vulnerable among us here in record numbers. We slaughter babies by the pallet load every other second in this country. And I'm like, what? I even found out we have been murdering babies born on the delivery table, like just left there to die. And that's supposed to be virtuous, and that's a liberal policy. Well, before my awakening, if you will, that was just normal as breathing. Like, who cares? Matter of fact, I had family members come up to me. What do you think about abortion? Well, I won't be too specific. It is family after all. But, what do you think about that? Because we're thinking about getting an abortion done. Yeah, go for it. I mean, you don't want to. Yeah, sure. I mean, okay. I didn't know about it. Who cares? It's only a clump of cells, right? I mean, that's TV told me it was just a clump of cells and it's a woman's right. So, yeah, for sure. So I was pro-abortion. I was pro-choice. I was pro-LGBTQ. I was pro-everything. Who cared? Because, again, I was a criminal. Right? I was the head of my small department there, and I had a crew, and we had a club. And we distributed hardcore narcotics, and I would be the liaison in the bridge sometimes from the biker guys to the Italian guys, because both of them had different drugs, and I was kind of the bridge to some of those things. And public distribution, import, export. I mean, I was part of a pyramid that made millions and millions of dollars each year in its power, and had corrupted everything around us. I can speak openly about it now because most of these associates, of course, are past life individuals, have passed away. It's an inevitable end. Murder or jail or, drug overdose, whatever, heart failures. Well, but now, you read the Bible, started reading the Bible in 2010, and things are different. I was waking up to it. Like, what's going on? So I chose to turn off the TV because I couldn't stand it anymore. I could see the lies now. It's like when you wake up to a cunning liar, a professional liar. I had an individual in my life who I thought was a close friend. But I found out he's actually not. He wasn't. And he's just a really good liar, a very cunning liar. And then now everything the individual says, it's a lie. It's a hypocrisy. It's the same. It was kind of when you wake up to someone, the reality, you awaken to the reality of what the person's character truly is. Wow. Well, it was the same with watching these liars now on TV. I'm like, these people are liars. They're telling me that murdering babies is good? No. I had to go study the science. I'm like, oh, wow, human life begins at conception. We should, okay. And also, like, why are we giving our children to the hands of pedophiles who are abusing them, who are teaching them homosexual pornography? No child of that age even has the concept of sexual perversion. Like, they're just little kids. Leave them alone. But yet they're being taught, and I'm being very mechanical here in its explanation. They're being taught how to express themselves as a child regarding anal sexual penetration and masturbation. And listen, this is a bit mature, but this is what they're being taught. Well, I was awakening to those things, and TV was telling me those things were good. And I'm like, I got to turn off the TV. We got to turn off the TV. The TV's telling us that those things are good. They're telling us that evil is good and good is evil. And people are believing it all around me. And then I start to find out how many Christians believe this nonsense. And how many Christians are literally loyalists to the political parties that promote this and enforce this, and they promote, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? How can someone who claims to be a faithful Christian openly defend the political parties that are openly saying, we want to murder more babies, and those we don't murder, we want to put in the hands of pedophiles to be perverted and abused? And I'm like, this is weird. So this was taking place, throughout the years while I'm awakening to what's taking place. Well, of course, I created a system of understanding for it. I had to kind of modularize and categorize all of this to make sense of it. And if you've been following me for a while, you've probably seen some of my Friday sessions, which are in current event or socio-political affairs through the Christian lens, the Christian perspective. You've probably come to know my system and how I organized it to make sense of it, and how this took place from what we used to be, what the identity we used to have, to now who we are and what's going on in our culture. So we had to turn off the TV. I was tired of that. No hockey game win last night's going to change that, by the way. We're still slaughtering babies today. We over here on the East Coast just elected a liberal majority government. And the first thing this liberal majority government did, like, it was so textbook standard stereotype. Like, those of us who are awake knew what was going to happen the minute they were given majority win, to which I expressed this opinion. It was a hijacked election, by the way. The Electoral Service and its integrity is shot down. It's gone. It's all corrupted. It's manipulated. Your votes aren't being counted if they are not the kind of vote that the principles and powers are currently seeking to have. This is not foil hat kind of stuff. There's actual evidence and documentation to prove that there is discrepancy and should take a deeper investigation here. But no, it's not part of the agenda. What's the first thing they did? Well, the first thing they did, of course, is remove the barriers that the past conservative government had put up. And I'm not a fan of the past, quote-unquote, conservative government that we used to have, which is why now our conservative government is called the progressive conservative, the PCs, progressive. Well, they had put up some boundaries still, because the community, the people, the culture, the parents were like, hey, man, our kids, little children, are being taught how to have anal sexual intercourse in their classes by teachers called they, them, they, this, him, this, that, the other, WD-40. And it's just not right. Well, what do you think happened the minute we got the liberal majority over here on the East Coast? The liberal majority, well, immediately, all funding went for abortions, abortion clinics, and for LGBTQ agenda-driven stuff. All of it. And what they ran with was, we're going to budget things. Already a week into their election win, and I say win, quote unquote, hijack and take over sounds a bit more accurate, but we blew the budget and we're going to blow it out of proportion, and we're going to have to tax you even more with this carbon thing. We're going to fix the weather, and because we got to murder more babies. We got to slaughter more babies. I live in a country where even saying this can put me in jail. Where even saying these things can put me in jail. And we have to stand. it's not bad enough. We have to be the recipients of our own kind, our own Christians and believers. Say, they don't get it. It's crazy. It's craziness. Well, that's why in this current season of lunacy, it's always the big bad orange man's fault. It just is. That's what we've been told. Blame it on the rain, right? Blame it on Trump. Planes are crashing. Blame it on Trump. Crime is at an all-time high. It's never been seen so high. People are afraid for their lives. They're afraid to walk out of the door. Blame Trump. Just blame Trump. Must be Trump's fault. Everything's Trump's fault. Well, of course, an individual whose mind has been polluted by the delusions of propaganda, an individual who's not truly learned or discerned, is going to fully convince himself in his own conscience that what he's hearing now, what's being said, is not right. And I know it's all made up stuff, right? Well, of course you are. Of course you're going to think that way. You don't have the ability to have independent thought. You're trapped in the ocean of delusion. You're fully convinced that what you're hearing on TV is true. It's all Trump's fault. Everything taking place, the planes crashing, the criminal activity, the economy collapsing, the loss of this, the loss of that, everything taking place. Everything that has been driven by foreign policy or violent policies, yeah, it's just all made up, man. It's all Trump's fault. That's how the delusional department of individuals who believe TV are found in. And it's sad. It truly is. They are voting for and promoting and living with the very thing that's going to extinguish their life. And they're just too blind to see it. They can't sit down and have a reasonable civil conversation. Everything to them is just an emotional reaction. And they can't function with thought. And it's sad because they don't understand the logic. They don't understand how to hash out objective absolutes from subjective opinions and things like that. And it's sad. It truly is. But it is what it is, and that's our current environment. That's our current environment. Now, there are indeed, as I was saying, millions of Canadians who are awake to what's taking place, and they they understand the vulnerability of our current country and where we're at, and how truly it is an inevitable end that we do become American territory. It just is going to happen. Doesn't matter if we won a hockey game last night. That's not going to change anything. We're going to become American territory. There's really no way around it. If not, we will be slaughtered. And our current, again, propaganda TV is telling us that we're going to be siding with China and siding with Ukraine and siding with all these powers against America and against Russia or something like that. It's so repetitive. It just because they want to function your mind into that kind of thought. Well, as Christians, obviously, we have to have the ability to think for oneself. As Christians, our position is not retaliatory or revenge. It's informed. It's influential. We try to, just like how I changed by reading the Bible in 2011 when my heart said, let's follow Jesus. Let's learn who Jesus is and let's follow him. The same application is for everyone. So as Christians, we have to kind of bring it to that end. We have to help people know Jesus and follow Jesus. And that's what will withdraw us from the lunacy of the left, which is lawlessness. It just is what it is. It's political talk when they descript all these descriptors, but it's lawlessness. God will call us away from lawlessness. If we just learn to read his words and truly allow our hearts to follow the instruction therein, you'll awaken to what's taking place. You'll be like, hey man, abortion's not cool. Hey man, homosexuality and LGBTQ stuff, that's not cool. That's not right. That's destroying our community. You'll start to recognize that all the policies that have been coming out from the Liberal Party, quote unquote, is is destruction and chaos and riot and death. It's perversion. It's lunacy. I mean, these people, I assure you, their hearts are corrupted. They are toxic. And they're producing policies and calling it good. And people are believing it because they have not been following the Bible. They've not been following the Word of God. And of course, as a Christian, we have to be upright not only within the information of the gospel, but also in our surroundings. Like, if you don't know about a thing, don't talk about a thing. What you have going on, and I mentioned in our last session, our last socio-political session or current event session, you have Christians who can teach you the gospel, but then they'll turn around and tell you, to vote for parties that have policies to murder more babies and pervert more children and destroy everything around us. Well, that's a walking contradiction. It's a hypocrisy. You can't be fruitful that way. You can't be productive. And it's because of this idea that somehow there is a separation of policies for the Christian mind. Like somehow Christians have absolutely nothing to do with politics or government. Or I posted a thought on my Facebook page at Its Souls here. And the thought was, listen, faithful Christians need to be doctors and lawyers. They need to be judges and soldiers. They need to be law enforcement. They need to be politicians. They need to be leaders. Faithful Christians need to be in every department of human public service. Because what we don't fill, the devil will. And that's exactly what's been taking place. You can be a faithful Christian and work at McDonald's. You can be a faithful Christian and work at the factory. My dad was a faithful Christian and worked at the factory for decades. You can be anything that is decent and upright and an honorable work, an honorable career. Be a faithful Christian. You can. This idea about separation of Christianity from politics or government or law enforcement or military is why we're in the mess we're in. The devil loves that kind of talk from believers. He loves it because he knows he can get in there. He can infiltrate and take over. He will fill what we don't fill. It just is. So if we say Christians have no business in politics, guess who's going to take over the political sphere? Someone says, well, we have nothing to do with this world. We're waiting on heaven. Well, that's a foolish thing to say and to believe because the Bible rebukes that kind of thought. What did Paul tell the brethren in Thessalonica? That they're just supposed to sit on the couch and do nothing and wait for the second coming? No. As a matter of fact, we were told to withdraw from a brother that does that. In other words, the principle of saying we don't need to do anything on this earth we don't need anything to do. We just need to be focused on the afterlife. Well, of course, the priority of our faith is to stay focused on the afterlife, no doubt. But it's not an either-or thing. You can remain focused in priority to Jesus and the afterlife, practicing evangelism, practicing benevolence, all of the attributes of Christian character. You can actually do that as a president, a prime minister, a king or a queen, a politician, a soldier. You can do that. It's because we've been saying we can't, and we find ourselves in a mess. Now, is it difficult? Well, yeah. It's difficult because now it's getting into politics or getting into government, it's a nest of putrid, corrupted, toxic filth. And so you have to be a pretty strong character because your life's going to be threatened. You're going to be canceled and banned. They're going to try to destroy you, slander you. I mean, it's a bad deal. Or you just become one of them. And sadly, that's what happens to a great many who get into the political sphere as believers saying, I'm going to do something good. And I know they get in there with a sincere heart saying, I'm going to do something good. But then they get corrupted because they see how corrupted the system is. We created this. This is not Trump's fault. This is not God's fault. We created this environment, this climate. We need to change it. We need to change the direction of that. Christians need to become educated. Over here with the East Coast congregation, Oh, and I'm plugging it in. Check out the East Coast Church of Christ.ca. EastCoastChurchofChrist.ca. I labor alongside the East Coast Church of Christ.ca. We are cultivating all sorts of faithful Christians in all kinds of departments. We have soldiers here, military, faithful Christians. Want to come tell them they're not faithful Christians? You won't find a book, chapter, verse for that. Matter of fact, you'll find book, chapter, verse for the principle that Christians should be involved in all things. If we do something good and decent, let's do it for God. That's the point. It's the only way we're going to change around. And what we're seeing in America is a massive wave returning to that very element, where we need to have faithful Christians in all departments of life. We need to have decent human beings in control of policy, in control, again, of government, corporation, academic institutions, entertainment industry, and media, news and cable. All the departments of public power need to be or have a decency, have a reasonable and fair thought and policy. And the only way, and that's been coming up, and that's why the screeching, the vehement screeching and just seething and loathing of those who have been living in evil for so long is just, it's astronomical. It's just so, they're losing their minds. They're throwing a fit every other day. No! How dare you expose all the corruption and fraud and coercion and murder and double dealing and duplistic ways? How dare you expose all the sinister ploys and plots of our corrupted? And they're just toxic to it. It's because we've been told for a decade that crime is legalized. That corruption is now legalized, and because it's been legalized, it's okay, it's good now. It's good, it's a good thing. And now there's this this cultivated movement of conservative policy, which of course goes, conservative policy in its true and purest form stems from Christian principles, by the way. It's not as if the conservative people said, let's just invent policies out of thin air, though they do. But when the policy is of a moral code, which almost everything has a moral code to it, of a moral code, it stems from Christian principles. Well, this movement now is coming up, and it's exposing error. It's exposing evil around the world, the globalist takeover that had taken place. It's exposing the corruption and the fraudulent ways. Well, those who have been living with the thought that crime is now legal, good is evil, and evil is good, that they're seething, they're freaking out, they're flipping out. I mean, their hate is misguided. It's all Trump's fault. This goes far and beyond Trump. It's not about Trump. It's not about Trump. Stop thinking it's about Trump. It's not about Trump. Trump's policies existed before Trump walked this earth. Are you aware of that? The policies Trump is promoting and enforcing, they've existed way before he walked this earth, way before he was even conceived in his mother's womb. It's not about Trump. You've been told it's about Trump, and you've been given the image of Trump as the source to hate. The source of all your problems, it's Trump. It isn't. Never has been. The problem stems between right and wrong, and the people have been deceived into believing wrong is right and right is wrong, and good is evil and evil is good. That the slaughter of innocent life is good. That the perversion of our most vulnerable and most young, that the perversion of our children, it's loving, it's love, it's diverse. DEI, strength and diversity, all of these slogans, they present themselves as virtuous and loving and kind, and that's what Christians should do. It's a lie. Wake up. It's a lie. They've been lying to us. Christians are to live in reality. Christians are to have a sober thought and self-controlled living in reality. Abortion is murder. It's the slaughter of human life. It's not love to give our children to the hands of pedophiles. It's hate. It's abuse. But I'm the bad guy, and everything I say is wrong, right? Because you've been conditioned to think that way. It's the same with the religious accuracy of the gospel we read in the Bible. We've been told by the ocean of denominationalism, which is a divided world, that the accuracy of the gospel is wrong and they're right. It's the same within the political sphere, which has hijacked moral conversation for their own selfish ambition and are saying, yeah, abortion's not wrong anymore. It's right, don't you know? It's right. It isn't right. Theft isn't right. Jesus himself knew that. If you just read his words and you remove yourself from any political affiliation, you'll start to see the picture. Jesus himself, what do you think was a condition of repentance to the people who were stealing too much, or the people who were taking from the people, the tax collectors? What did he tell them? Take what's fair, take what's right, but don't take above and beyond what's right. Of course we have to render to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. But he rebukes those who have been taking more than their fair share of what the... And somehow we turn a blind eye? In this country now, we've reached the tipping point. Socialism crept into our country. That's the political name to it, socialism, where you steal from people that work hard to give it to people who don't want to work hard, okay? And it's very basic description. Socialism came into our country and went to work. And at the beginning, sure, okay, so we had 95% of the community working hard, giving 5% to the poor people. Fine, cool. Because we didn't want to do it ourselves, you see. We wanted the government to do it for us because it got to be a burden. I don't want to open my own wallet and go to the poor person of the community and give him. But that's how we used to live. I grew up in a location where a neighbor could come over and say, hey, I don't have any bread, I don't have any butter, I don't have any milk this week, or whatever, sugar, salt. And we'd give each other, we'd help each other that way. We don't need the government to come in, take my money and give it to you, because they won't give it to you. They never do. We used to take care of each other that way. We didn't need socialism. We just needed kind Christian hearts. We had very poor people in our community, like poverty people, who didn't have food, who didn't have clothing, some of them didn't even have shelter. We took care of each other as a community. We didn't need the government to do that. No, but we got tired of it. Well, now we want the government to do that because the government told us they'd do it. I mean, if they're going to do it, why not let them do it? So we began, 95% of us working real hard, paying our taxes. Why? And it was low in taxes, low taxes. Why? 5%. Well, we're going to throw 5% to these people here who need help. Yeah, that sounds good. It presents itself really virtuous. But now when you find yourself that you're taxed 53% of your wages, and you have now close to the borderline of half people working for the other half who don't want to work, and it's bred this community and culture where people who able bodies are no longer willing. They just want to leech. You're going to have problems in the community. You're going to have people frustrated and angry. And not everyone has a Christian mind. Some of them are going to take action. They're going to practice retaliation and unrighteous protest, and they're going to get angry. They can't feed their kids anymore because, well, to discern these things, we need to be governed by inspired words. That's a solution. We're at the cusp of full collapse. Again, that's why people ask my opinion. What do you think? What's going on with America, and Trump saying we should become the 51st state and whatnot? It'd be a liberation at this point. For those of us who are awake, we are well aware what that would be. It would be liberation. We are, and the administration there with Trump, they are full aware of what's going on over here. They know this country is corrupted to its brim. Chinese Communist Party has taken over many locations, Indian nationalist and violent men, Middle Eastern Hamas, and it's infiltrated by every foreign barbaric enemy humanly possible. You can't have a people function properly and upright when they see themselves starving at the food line bank at the food bank line to feed their kids, while $82,000 of their taxpayer money is going to an illegal quote-unquote refugee that's living in the hotels. And no, I'm not speaking out of turn. I am speaking reality because I know people in the hotel industry over here. And they say it. They said, yeah, the hotel is filled. The suites, everything are filled with non-citizen illegal entries claiming refugee status. But they're all young, war-torn men who are here taking all the money and bragging about it on their TikToks, by the way. How are you going to function that way as a society? Does that sound like a Christian virtue to you? Does that sound like Christ? We're not talking about the poor person who needs help, a genuine righteous benevolence. No. That would still be happening if we would have kept it with the community. But we didn't. We wanted government to take care of everything. Government's corrupted. It's just, we can't keep functioning this way. And yes, of course, we know our citizenry truly is in heaven. We are members of the kingdom of His Majesty's reign. Yeah, we know that, but that shouldn't be utilized as an excuse to void us from the stewardship we should have in these physical vessels. Going back now to what Paul was telling the brethren in Thessalonica, you can't just sit around on the couch and not be involved and wait for the second coming. Matter of fact, brethren who do that should be withdrawn from. What is he saying? He's speaking a principle. We've been given the responsibility of life. We exist. You hear me, right? This is reality. We're alive. We exist. The material matter of this existing world, here we are. All its intricate details, its elaborate engineering, all of its mechanisms, here we are. This is reality. It's an objective reality. It's true. It's not been given in vain. It's not been given to be squandered. We have to take responsibility of our existence and to take great time to preserve our physical vessels and the well-being of our society to the best we can, to the higher measurement we can attain, to have peace. Why? It's all for the greater good of His Majesty's kingdom. It's all for it. Why would you want to get into government for? Why do you want to get in politics for? If it's not for Christ, it's all for naught. It's not going to work out. That's what's been happening. Christians have been saying we have no business there. Well, the devil does. The devil's like, good. And it's always going to result in slaughter. It's everything happening that is unrighteous and that is a threat has one design. It's always been the same. From the Caesars from the Pharaohs to the Caesars to everything in between and afterwards, it's all designed for one thing: to slaughter those who believe in God, to get rid of it. That's the sole purpose. That's why we find ourselves in this godless time, godless season, where taxation theft is a normal thing. They're telling us it's going to fix the weather. It's not going to fix the weather. It has nothing to do with the weather. That's why we slaughter little human beings in record numbers, telling us it's a virtuous right that women have, and it's not. It's murder. It's always been murder. It will always be murder. And there's a higher court that's going to open its doors for its proceedings one day on that one. Giving our children over to pedophilia and to pedophiles to be abused sexually, to be given puberty blockers, to be told they weren't born right and they need to change and to be castrated and to be... That's not love. That's not love. And any Christian saying they vote for those policies is going to have a harsh day on the hour the sky opens and Christ is revealed yet again in the sky. They're going to have a harsh reality, man. I don't want to meet God that way. I have enough to worry about on my own end. I need His grace as much as any other man. But I assure you, I'm not meeting God on that end saying I voted for policies that kept murdering babies and kept perverting children and kept stealing from the people and good grief. I just don't get it sometimes. I just shake my head at some of my brethren. And I know they've shook their head at me probably for many times as well. I'm not speaking as one who thinks he's perfect here. But man, things have got to change. Things have got to change, and I prefer having my children live with a certain amount of liberty. Because liberty, what is that truly? Freedom. Some will say freedom is being able to say stuff without the fear of being hurt for it, Others may say it's the ability to find a job and build a house. True freedom, of course, is in Christ. It's the forgiveness of sins. It's eternal life. But in principle and a great many other facets of stewardship we are called to practice and have responsibility on, yeah, of course. I mean, who doesn't want freedom? And sociopolitically, logically speaking, void of any emotional misguidance, Canada becoming an American territory, American soil, is the better outcome for the people in this country. It just is. It just is. In regards to taxes, in regards to the Constitution, in regards to the liberty that the American documents have, and it's what the common slang of the community would say. It's a no-brainer. In fact, in reality, it's a full-brainer, isn't it? To utilize one's mind is to understand where we're at. There is obviously a line in the sand where one meets that moment and says, you know what, it's time to pack up the bags and go. If not, we're going to have to witness our children being slaughtered in the streets. As the head of the household, as the lead of this family, I won't permit that to happen. It's just not going to happen. We follow Christ. We follow him as faithfully as we can. We walk to the instructions and guidance of his inspired word. And it's blessed us beyond measure. Gives us insight to discern right from wrong. Whether it have a religious tone or it have a political tone. So, yeah, can we have a moment of joy that we won a hockey game last night? Sure, fine. Yeah, it's decent, fine. But that doesn't change one moment the current fallen nature of this nation. It just doesn't, and we're in a lot of trouble. We really are. There's things going on people are just sleeping on because, again, TV's complicit, by the way. TV is complicit. They are complicit to what's been happening because they've been lying to us. And we as Christians should know what the difference between a lie and the truth. I see it on Facebook news feeds. Some of my brethren, man, I don't get engaged with that. I don't feel the need to get on their post and to get on their profiles and to get on their thread and tell them they're wrong, though I know they are. Why? Because I know it's a fruitless endeavor. It's just their hearts are fully convinced and loyal to their political affiliation, which is usually the Democrat Party. Usually. Now, will you find the toxic Republican Christian who thinks Trump is God on earth? Absolutely. See, that's what I hate sometimes, because if you've been listening to this session here and your political affiliation is on the left, then you're going to automatically think I'm some kind of a Trump worshiper. And I hate that because I'm not. Do I think the man is doing what he's been voted to do? Yes. Do I think the man is upholding policies that are upright and that come from Christian principles? Absolutely. Do I think Trump is a god? Well, he may think himself a god, but he's not God. Trump is just another man like any other. He's in sin. But Trump's not the guy who's going to come preach a sermon behind the pulpit on Sunday either. Again, he's just a vessel. God is working in all these things. He was doing it with Obama. He was doing it with Biden. He'll permit evil men to do evil things which accomplish the fulfillment of his will. Well, here's an easy one. Do you think God voted for Judas Iscariot or something? Like, do you think God was a pro Judas because Judas was going to bring his son to be murdered? Or at least facilitate or participate in his son's demise? Well, no, but he permitted Judas to do what Judas did, right? God permits the Nebuchadnezzars to do what they do. God permits Justin Trudeau over here to be who he is and do what he does. Would God much rather have Justin Trudeau repent and become a faithful Christian and turn from the corruption and the lunacy and the immorality? Well, of course. But God will permit corrupt kings to oppress corrupt people into repentance. I think God had mercy on the American people. I think the American people came so close to losing it all that God had mercy and said, well, there's still a glimpse of light for them. No, I do not believe that God miraculously came, put his hand out from the clouds and made Donald Trump, the bastion. No. Some say, well, God saved Trump from being shot. Maybe. You can't prove that in a court of law, but maybe. We are truly in a war, always a spiritual war. It manifests itself at times physically between good and evil. It just is. It is. It's happening. There are things also happening in the spiritual realm that you and I can't see with our physical eyes yet, that have influence on what's taking place in our physical world. And Donald Trump is the most powerful individual on earth. In America, has been. I'm not so confident to still say, well, probably is still, I suppose, or will be soon. Again, the mightiest power on earth. It's never been recorded in history. America is the first recorded history of such a power and sovereignty and independence. Canada would be blessed to become an American state. But we've been told by TV to hate Trump, and it's Trump's fault on everything, so much that they don't see that liberation is there. Like, you're dying of cancer, you're going to suffer greatly, but you don't need to. Look, here's the cure. I hate it because the person who's giving me the cure, I hate the person who's giving me the cure because TV told me to hate the person who's giving me the cure. It's ridiculous. And it's quite frustrating to walk on this earth as an individual who is awakened to it all and knows what's taking place. But we take courage because we're not the only ones. There are millions like us. Obviously there is. Look, they voted Trump in America, so obviously there are millions of people who get it. But it's all for naught if it's not for God, though. That's the thing. If God's not honored, all of this is for nothing. So, are we happy we won our Canadian hockey game last night? Well, of course, it's decent joy, it's decent fun. But some have brought it to a toxic level, thinking that somehow some Canadians are so delusional, they think somehow because they won a hockey game against the American people that means we're going to win a war against them or something. Or we're going to pick up arms and slaughter our children fighting against the American people and soldiers. Nah, no. I assure you that ain't going to be happening with me and my family. No, sir. I'm not doing that stuff. But some have that idea. No, we won a hockey game, we can win the war. No. You're going to win the war with what? Tampons? In the men's bathrooms in the military? Really? Nah, we're done. We're cooked. It's over. Our military actually, just a few days ago, which is a woke DEI leadership. All of them are woke DEI components now. They're drenched in lunacy. Have said that because our military is depleted. Nobody wants to go in the military anymore. Almost, it's sad. It's so our current military, which is run by DEI, woke associates, they said from now on we've removed all the archaic, all that old way of recruiting. It's just old and racist, and it's not diverse enough. So now we're just going to allow even people who aren't even citizens. A middle-aged Middle Eastern man comes in, immediately given the refugee status. Could be a war criminal, could be a jihadist, could be whatever. Who cares? He can now be a soldier, be a police officer, and that's the last vestige of a broken and fallen nation. That's it. That's it. When you invite and welcome those who hate us and want to slaughter us, and give them military might and give them law enforcement to go out to the communities, it's over. It's done. We're cooked. And I think Trump knows that, and his administration know that, and they know the corruption that is here. And I really hope something happens, and that the bad guys go to jail, and that they're exposed and go to jail. And honestly, at the end of the day, with every conversation I have in the community, I say the same thing. I'm like, I just want peace, man. I just want to live in peace. I don't want to live in... If we can live in peace, why not choose peace? And this whole Zelensky thing, there's another thing. So we've been told that Zelensky's, this bastion of hope, this world leader, this hero type person, right? I knew a snake in the grass from the moment I saw that dude. The minute I saw Justin Trudeau buddy up with this guy, I already knew there was a problem. I already knew this guy's corrupted. So Trump, of course, is bringing forth the reality of his corruption. And people are up in arms and just flipping out because, again, TV's telling them to. Ukraine is probably filled with decent people. There's good, kind people there. And I feel so sorry that many of them have been slaughtered by an unnecessary war. But they've been told that it's all Putin's fault, that Putin's the one that started the war. I'm not well-versed enough to have an opinion on those things. But from my understanding and from the nature and character of people like Zelensky and Justin Trudeau and various others around the world, it could easily be a lie they spun. It really could. It's sad because every time I've heard Putin speak words, he speaks so how should I say? The things he is saying is right. Now, I'm not for dictators or anything. I don't know, not at all, but I know we've been lied to on that one big time. So Trump is saying Zelensky's not at the table anymore because he's corrupted. He's corrupt. And he's just going to keep the war going. So, of course, naturally, our leader, Justin Trudeau, turns around and says, Zelensky's God, and we're going to keep giving all our money to God. So I already know there's an issue, and I already know Canada wants to side up with remain sided with the European delusion and fight against America and Putin somehow. It's just crazy times we live in, really crazy times where the complicit organizations have been lying to us for so long that we believe the lie. But that's the whole thing, if you ask me my opinion from what I've been able to understand, America's not the bad guy. It was under its other administrations, under Biden and the Clintons and Obama and all of them. They were certainly doing corrupt stuff there. Trump is trying to now do the best he can to clean that up and exposing the corruption that had been taking place. I believe Zelensky is indeed a corrupt individual who's been money laundering. They're all been money laundering. I mean, think of it. These people, even in our parliament over here, we're talking about people whose wages in a year is something like $120,000. Now, $120,000 a year over here isn't much now. It really isn't. It isn't much at all. It's just barely living, depending on family size. And, of course, there's context and case-per-case situation, but in general format. But these politicians, making $120,000 a year are now multi-millionaires? How'd that happen? I didn't see them sell any books. What's going on? And even the books they tried to sell weren't selling. What's going on? Well, there's corruption afoot, no doubt. You try to You try to do that. You try to do that. See how far you go. Well, you'd be put in jail pretty quickly. So there's an issue there. There's corruption. And as Christians, aren't we supposed to stand against corruption and expose evil in all its facets, whether it be religious or political or whatever else? Well, of course. Of course we are supposed to be that way. So this whole thing taking place with Zelensky and whatnot, I think Zelensky is the bad guy. He's a bad actor. And I think Trump caught on to it with his administration because they get to look at the papers now. They're looking at the numbers. They're looking at the papers. They're looking at things that have been hush-hush and secretive and back deals. And they're like, oh, well, now we see what's going on with this war. What about the USAID thing? Oh, boys. USAID. Oh, man, oh, man. Again, I see some brethren who are loyalists to the Democrat Party. And these types, they want to infiltrate every location. They want to infiltrate your universities, your colleges, your academic institutions, so as to teach your children all this kind of stuff. They're all up in arms, saying it's against the love of Christ. They make it out to be a thing that it isn't. It's how dare Trump and them stop the USAID thing and whatnot. Listen, it may have had a sincere branch. It may have had a sincere beginning. I don't know. Maybe. It may have really tried to do something good at one time. It may have done some really good things. But right now, as it stands, it's corrupted. Billions of dollars? Over here, our foreign aid agencies and government powers are corrupted to the lunacy they hold. Billions of dollars for abortions in some third world country? Billions of dollars for condoms or LGBTQ material in countries that need water, let alone books about homosexual activities. And then you check even if the money went for that, and it hasn't even. It's gone somewhere. Where's the money? No one knows. How dare you want to look into this? These shifts peoples in these waters and these people I see on the Democrat Party over in America and over here in our Liberal Party, our NDP Party, our Green Party, and even our PCs, our Progressive Conservative Party. They're literally government stooges. They're globalist stooges, and they're filled with immoral, toxic, corrupt ways. All of them, to one measurement to another. I see it play before me, and I don't make it a hobby horse. I used to. I don't. I speak about it on my Friday podcast sessions now. You can look at our post on our platforms. You can look at my personal profile. I don't harangue on these things. I don't make it the soapbox moment every other post. I don't ride the hobby horse anymore because it's not valuable. It only makes us weary. It's good to be informed, and it's good to be informed daily, but our focus is with the peace that comes in the gospel and our works as Christians. My focus is for the spiritual well-being of my fellow brethren at the East Coast Church of Christ, and we together remain informed in what's taking place so that we're not so that we can discern a political lie and that we don't side with a lie in the community, which would make us a contradiction or have us in opposition to what is right. So we're aware of what's going on. Okay, we're aware of it, but we do not spiral downwards into anxiety or depression with it. We are well in our thoughts and spirit, and it's important we have a balance with that. In other words, we can know that the politicians who say that abortion is good and homosexuality is good and socialism is good, and theft is good, and they try to spin it off as if it's good, we know they are lying. And we see them lying every day. When they tell us that planes crashing is all Trump's fault, we know that's a lie. It's not Trump's fault at all. When they try to say, well, it's because he's cutting, we know the reason he's doing what he's doing with his administration regarding USAID is because he's exposing corruption. We're talking about facts, numbers. And here's what's difficult, and it makes me think of this. Here's what's difficult for many people, because we've been living with the idea, we've been taught at school. We've been taught at school there is no such thing as absolutes, meaning there is no absolute standard. Truth is not a thing. It's whoever is his own. Then you go in the isms, right? Relativism, pluralism, emotionalism. In other words, there is no such thing as the truth. So therefore, I will make my own truth. And the reason I will make it my own truth is because I feel it should be my own truth. Relativism, pluralism, emotionalism. And we've been enamored by that. So therefore, when someone says, no, that's wrong, here's reality, 1 + 1 makes 2. Well, that's your reality. That's your truth. It's not mine. Mine says 1 + 1 makes 3. And so when an administration comes up and brings back its preserved tradition in respecting what is absolute, respecting the fact that we do live in a world with objective, absolute truth, people go nuts because they've been told there's no such a thing as ultimate truth. But there is. You may like different pizza toppings. Okay, that's subjective. I will tell you, my wife is the most beautiful woman in the whole earth. Well, it's subjective. She's beautiful to me. But obviously, you will think your husband or your wife is the most beautiful. At least you should. Well, it's subjective. We can disagree. Be like, I disagree. I don't think your wife is the most beautiful. I think my wife is the most beautiful. Okay. I like pepperoni on my pizza. I prefer the cured pepperoni. And I prefer it on top of the mozzarella because when you put it in the oven, it curls up and it does this crispy, tasty little thing. Well, you may say, gross. I don't like it that way. I like anchovies. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm fine. Well, that's quite different. That's in the department of subjective conversation, and we can disagree on matters of opinion that way. But when it comes to, is it right or wrong to take a little baby and rip his limbs off and cut him into pieces in his mother's womb and just call him a bunch of cells? Again, I live in a country where there is absolutely no law against murdering a baby. We have recorded over 500, and that was like 5 years ago, 500 babies left on the delivery table to die. They just left to starve, die, who cares, suffer. Doesn't matter. It's abortion. It's a woman's choice. Now, of course, they stopped counting those things. They don't want us to know. No, that's right and wrong. That's a right and wrong. That's an objective, absolute fact. It's wrong. It's wrong. Murder is wrong. What if criminals want to break down my door at 3 a.m., want to bring me harm? I don't know what they want. They're breaking in my door with ski mask and guns. What am I going to do? I'm going to send them to Jesus. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. See, that's a kill. That's a righteous kill. That's self-defense. That's different than a murder. One's a guilty party, one's not. We've lost that moral code. Why? Because we've been taught in schools through, of course, lunacy infiltrated to teach our children that there is no such thing as right and wrong. There is no such thing as heaven or hell or God or the devil, and there is no God, and we're all a bunch of animals, and so therefore your truth is yours and mine is mine. And that always leads to the destruction of a society. It always does. It's recorded in our history. It always brings forth the destruction of a society. You have to uphold reality. Truth is reality. It's the same with religious fact. It's an objective, absolute religious fact of Christianity that the 66 books of the Bible are inspired literature. It can be proven in an honorable court of law, and it has been, but you have to want to know it. See, if you are rebelliously snared within the egotistical pride of your lunacy, and you say, there is no such thing as truth, then the truth presented to you ain't going to persuade you any way. You're not going to believe it. So if you're told the 66 books of the Holy Bible, 39 books of the Old, the 27 books of the New are inspired, God-breathed literature, you're not going to believe that, because in your mind, there's no such a thing. You're never going to cure yourself of alcoholism if you first don't admit that you have an alcohol problem. The objective absolute reality of the Scriptures and the New Testament system is that there is but one kind of church that belongs to Christ. It's very unique, and it's descriptive. It tells us how to discern it from those who may masquerade as churches belonging to Christ who don't really belong to Christ. So there is the uniqueness of the church. There is the uniqueness of one's salvation through Christ. There is the uniqueness of worship and how God is pleased in that way. And there is the uniqueness of discipline and local assembly and independence. The pillars and structure of the Scriptures in faith are objective absolutes. But you see, you're not going to believe that if you've already told your mind there is no such thing as absolutes. And what I find interesting with the proponents who claim there is no such thing as objective absolutes, I find it strange that those very ones are the ones that are constantly seeking to shove something down your throat. Yeah, there's more than two sexes. There's more than male and female. Oh? If there's no such thing as objective absolute, why are you so firmly convinced in your lunacy with it? No, there is only male and female. We've known that. It's a reality. Everything else made up is lawlessness. It's perversion. It's not right. The same people, and here's what I find so strange sometimes with brethren. Well, we trust the experts. The experts are telling you have to be taxed to death to fix the weather. The experts are telling you there are more than two sexes. The experts can't discern the difference between right and wrong. What do you mean? Yeah, but it's all Trump's fault. It's all Trump's fault. The problem goes way deeper than that. Look at, for instance, look at Matthew 19, right? The whole marriage, divorce, and remarriage thing. The socio-political powers of the day, the Sanhedrin, and the various parties tried to get Jesus snared up. Tried to trap him some way. The Pharisees more so, of course. Tried to see which side he would side, which school of thought he would side with. Let's try to snare him somehow. They were more concerned with socio-political affairs and policies to enforce or loose than they were truly to what God was saying. And of course, Christ said, I don't side with any of you. I side with my Father from the very beginning, who made them male and female, to be blessed together as husband and wife. I don't side with you. So when you want to know where I side with divorce or where I side with remarriage and all those things, I side with my Father in heaven, who from the very beginning, pre-Mosaic law, pre-standards and socio-political policies of humanity, pre-all of that, from the mind of God, my Father, from the very beginning, he is who I side with. Male and female, husband and wife. And upon that, he gave us the law, which is in Matthew 19:9. The law of Christ is the same as the law of his Father from the very beginning, and it has been throughout the dispensations of time. Now, in the Old Testament, God suffered long through the ages of corruption man practiced in polygamy or marriage and divorce for all sorts of other reasons that were not upright and righteous and permissible. He suffered long, but now in the New Testament system to which you and I live, which is the age of the Christian era, you and I are called to repentance. There's no longer any excuses for this. So we are to uphold the marriage law. Well, what's the point? We have to go back to the source cause of our law. We're enamored in thinking man is his own God to create his own law. It isn't. Paul himself knew that and told his brethren in Rome. Law comes from God, and the only thing government needs to do is to practice capital punishment on murderers. Keep its people secure. That's it. That's why you pay taxes. Any other brother or preacher trying to tell you something otherwise, he's got an agenda. And most times, he's a loyalist to the Democrat Party. I've noticed that. No, the only function for government and the reason we pay taxes is for capital punishment upon murderers. But in today's lunacy, we protect the murderer and we jail the law-abiding citizen. You know, we have people in Canada who have been criminals charged 400 times. It sounds so outlandish. It even sounds outlandish to say it. They're always released again. The people, the truckers, and the movement for the freedom convoy that took place a few years ago to try to liberate us from the lunacy and oppression of tyrants, they were put in jail, and they were fined. They lost their jobs. They lost everything. But a rapist, a serial rapist and murderer, he goes scot-free. He's out on bail. That's where we live now. That's the reality of a world that has let go, that has withdrawn ourselves from God. We need to go back to God. We need to go back to God. There is no true peace like eternal peace found with Christ. There really isn't. And as I was saying, we must, I think, as Christians, be informed people so that we can teach our kids, because our kids are living it. They see it. Whether they be on their social media platforms or out in the community, they hear these conversations and things. And if the church doesn't speak to them and teach them, and they're going to fall prey to it. They will be contaminated by the lunacy of the woke left, which is, again, descriptive words we currently utilize to mean one thing: lawlessness, sin. What we don't fill, the devil will. So hooray, we won a hockey game last night. Okay, cool. Good. Moment of joy. We won a hockey game. If that's supposed to be the anchor to bring us back to normalcy, we're gonna greatly be discouraged. It isn't. It isn't gonna be any politician. It isn't gonna be a hockey game. It's gonna be Jesus. Following Jesus. We need to go back to the source material, to the Bible. We have to stop taking man's word for things, and we need to go back to the Bible. We need to do things the Bible says. That's how we're going to be victorious in Christ. All right, my friends, an hour and a half into this for our Friday session on current events. Of course, I speak my thoughts. Some of them are opinionated. They aren't, how should I say, matters of objective absolutes. They're just my observation, my thoughts, my opinions. Some of them are based, of course, in moral right and wrong. They are objective. There's no room for, well, let's just agree to disagree. No, we cannot agree to disagree on abortion. We cannot agree to disagree on sexual immorality. We cannot agree to disagree on theft and fraud and corruption and lawlessness. No, we're not going to, that's not going to happen. But we can, of course, agree to disagree if we're saying, hey, you know what, maybe we should take this $10 and put it into transportation. Or maybe we should take this $10 and put it into, I don't know, helping this orphanage here. Or let's take $10 and put it there. Let's take $10. We can have agreements and disagreements on stuff like that. But there's no such thing as agree to disagree with matters of morality and matters of God's law. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't need to be violent. It doesn't need to bring out an outward action of violence. I'd much rather have a civil conversation and talk it out with logic, with reason. But if the enemy is not willing to talk anymore and they are going to practice unrighteous violence against us, we must defend ourselves with righteous violence. And we will, because God's law supersedes any man-made law. We fear God more than man. So when man told us we can't congregate and worship God, we still did. Even if that meant we were going to be taken to jail. Some of us were taken to jail. Some of us were fined. Some of us were physically assaulted. No, we follow God's law. Friends, I appreciate you a great deal. I truly do. And I know with these conversations at times they can be fueled with a lot of emotion, if you will, at times and whatnot. But we be brethren, we be united, we be in fellowship. We are to understand these things, but not dwell on the chaos and corruption that is found out there in this fallen world. We are to remain focused on what is upright and true and precious, which is God, Christ, His gospel, which saves our souls. Stefan Maya is my name. AddedSouls.com is my website, and I labor alongside the East Coast Church of Christ. And you can check out the .com or the .ca, East Coast Church of Christ.ca. We'd love to have you. We'd love to study with you. And you can come learn why we believe what we believe and why we are like-minded in judgment, not only within the realm of the gospel accuracy, but also in socio-political affairs and what's taking place in our society. And to that end, just real quick here, because it makes me think of this. Many, of course, who are believing the lies in this country regarding Canada, becoming the 51st state or whatever. They'll say things like, we're going to lose our free health care. There's no such thing as free health care. It's socialism, and it's destroyed our health care, as a matter of fact. Waiting 24 to 48 hours to see a doctor. Many people have been dying in the waiting rooms over here. So let's get that one out of the way. The other one is we'll lose our Canadian identity. Well, we already have. But here's the thing. When you go to Texas, you find Texans. They're in America. They're Americans, but they're Texans. It's the same concept. Canadians won't lose our maple leaf. We won't lose our maple syrup. We won't lose our hockey. We won't lose our friendly ways. It'll still be Canada. It'll just be a Canadian state. You want to go to the state of Canada? You'll find Canadians there. It's going to happen. I know some people mock me or some people hate me for saying it, but it's going to happen. It's an inevitable end. You take away the emotion from it, it will happen. And I embrace it. And everyone who can discern the difference between right and wrong embraces it. It's a much better governing system. Now, here is a true and real concern. What happens after 4 years? Are we going to go back to the bad guys? Well, we'll see. We'll hopefully pray that the good guys who are currently in power over there in America are going to set up policies that do not permit bad guys to be in power again. That's it. All right, man. Stay focused and stay positive. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. If you'd like to have more from me, you can certainly follow me on my personal profile on Facebook. We stream also on my YouTube channel, Stefan Ashmaye, on my Rumble channel, Added Souls. And after this, I upload our sessions on Substack. And Substack takes the audio and, of course, shares it all over the place. iTunes, Spotify, Google, Amazon, wherever. It's all over the place. You are loved and you are appreciated. Even if you truly disagree with everything I've just said, know you are loved and you are appreciated. Anyways, good stuff. Stay focused, man. Stay positive. We'll talk to you next time around, Lord willing. Peace out.